Now, people that have been here a while know I'm a pretty active consumer. What I like to do is buy things, unbox them, set them up, and show you how I did it on the internet. Now, I've shown you a lot of the big stuff, but I'd like to show you three smaller products that really can be applied to just about any tank. And that's coming up right after this. Hey YouTube, this is Pecktec, and I've been waiting patiently for my tank to kind of like get settled in and things to start to calm down. It's really starting to clear up. There's a couple of little weird things happening here and there. I've got some of that white stuff growing on my spider wood. That is completely normal. It's happened with every piece of spider wood I've ever had. I don't think I didn't boil every piece. I boiled some of this, but not all of the spider wood at some point, and so it's greatly reduced from what it normally is, but there's a little bit of that on there. I also found my first inhabitant, which is a pond snail. And a lot of people freak out with snails. They hate snails and stuff. I welcome them. They're a natural part of the aquarium. I don't want to be overrun with snails, but there's ways to prevent that, both with feeding and just different inhabitants of your tank that eat them. And some snails are just fine. So right now I've got a 210-gallon pond snail tank. So now watching my tank over the course of the week, I noticed there was a little bit of surface scum. I really think a lot of it's really just being filled for the first time. And I've included some surface agitation to kind of keep that from building up too bad. But I notice I get the same thing on my smaller tanks. I actually just watched a great video by ADU Aquascaping, and he explained CO2 and surface scum and just kind of explained where it comes from. It was really interesting. I'll leave a link to that down below. I'm not going to get into really the whys of surface scum. That's why I'm providing you with that link. Alright, so I saw a little bit of surface film on there and I kind of wanted to remove it, but I also wanted a small surface skimmer that I could use in maybe a spec or some other small tank later on down the road. So I found this. This is the ADU Skim 250. And as you can see, I've already pulled it out of the box. So as you watch me unbox it with bated breath, let me just read off what it says on the box, okay? Nano surface skimmer for small planted aquarium. Strong suction for oily surface film. Secure water inflow gate to prevent small fish or shrimp from being pulled in. Transparent design for easy monitoring. It's best suited for 10 to 250 liter water plant and marine tanks. How many gallons is 250 liters?
The answer is 66.04 gallons.
Oh, so up to 66 gallons. I kind of overshot just a little bit with this tank. But surface skimmers all work basically the same way. They have a little floating part at the top and a small circular weir, and it pulls water right off the surface. And it just sucks the oil and film and whatever else is that is floating around up there. It sucks it right through a filter and kind of diffuses it out. I thought this was a neat little design. I get sort of annoyed when they make aquarium equipment white. If I had a big pet peeve for this, is that it's a kind of a bright white color. I wish it was black. Long ago in high school, I was really active in my community theater. And that included building sets and stuff like that. And anytime you didn't want someone to see something that you had on stage, you painted it black. And that's the way I feel about aquarium equipment. I pretty much always want it to be black or maybe dark gray, if you have to differentiate a dial or something like that. But actually the tank I had in mind for this thing would be probably one of the fluval specs that I've got around. I might replace something inside the filtering compartment and make some room for it and just kind of hide it in the back. And it would do a much better job than just the built-in weir, because it'd be actively sucking stuff from the surface. So how well does it work? Well, I put it up in this tank, and I gotta say that I was extremely surprised and impressed with its abilities. I actually went to go get the camera and set it up, and I caught just a couple of seconds of it, and I thought, oh, well, this is probably gonna take a while. But then I came back 10 minutes later, and it was clear. I mean, it cleared the top of this entire tank in like just minutes. And I just kind of left it on and it's stayed really clear. Now the big trick is to turn it off and see if it comes back. I really feel like that surface film was just from filling up that tank from that first initial fill. It's stuff that floated up and just kind of got caught up there. But I gotta say my first impression, other than being bright white, which why would they do that? Other than being bright white, I think that is a really effective product. I mean, for what it does, its function, it's highly effective. It's got a little sponge, you can clean it out and stuff like that. I think that's what limits the capacity of it is it would probably get kind of clogged and maybe be less effective over time, especially in a big tank like this. But if you're thinking like between 2 and 60 gallons, that's a huge range just to be a useful component. But it's probably best suited for kit tanks. I'm thinking like the Fluval Flex. If you have a problem in there, I agitate the surface of my water a lot in the Flex. I think it'd be great for a betta tank if you've got like a hidden filter, or if maybe you don't mind the white. Some people don't mind the equipment, that's fine too. Okay, so the second thing is super cheap, guys, and I almost didn't even bring it up, but I thought, what the heck, you know? I bought this pack of 3 digital thermometers. I use the regular thermometers most of the time, but digital ones are just a little bit easier to read, and I thought it would be neat to get some of those. They each come with like an extra battery. They have a long cord with a probe. They've got some instructions, but basically what you need to know from the instructions is A, you have to turn it on and off. It doesn't automatically turn off. And 2, only the probe and the cord is waterproof. The rest of it you need to keep out of the water. Now, because these were cheaper thermometers, I went ahead and just kind of laid all 3 out and checked them for consistency. For the most part, after I let them sit for a long time, they did pretty good. They were only off by a couple of degrees here and there. That's one thing you never get. Like any other time I've had a thermometer, it's been basically like, I'll buy one thermometer. So how do you compare its accuracy? Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the Kessel spectral controller. As you guys might remember, I chose like the medium-sized Kessel, freshwater Kessel lights for this tank. Now, looking inside the spectral controller, we'll find a couple of things. We've got a power cord. It's basically a USB to micro USB cable that it uses for power. It's got a wall wart that seems to have an adaptable plug. And it comes with your first controller cable, so it can control one light right out of the box. It also comes with a mounting plate and screws and the controller itself. The controller fits onto the mounting plate magnetically, and if you pull the mounting plate up and look at it really close, you'll see that it does fit on in a particular direction. Be sure to screw the screws in so that the divots are up. On the bottom of the controller, you'll see that there are 2 ports, so you can actually control 2 different sets of lights with one controller. I don't have it mounted yet because I'm not sure. I might switch it so it starts over on this side and works its way over, and then put a different light on the 30-gallon over here that also has a Kessel light. So if I put a newer model light on that, I could actually control both lights with the same controller. And by control, I mean that there are a whole slew of settings that you can do. Now, the other light I have on here is a Current USA light, and it's one of those 24/7 lights that you can program into a schedule, so it'll gradually come up, and then it's bright. Then it kind of steps its way down until it gets dark, so it doesn't dramatically just turn on and then turn off. And pretty much up until that light, I never had my lights were either on or they were off. There was no change in intensity or color or anything like that. So I'm real excited to use the spectral controller to kind of expand the way my lights look and feel, you know, the way they operate, get them even closer to nature. One big difference between like the Current USA light and this light is that the Current USA one steps down over a course of like 15 minutes, but it's a real dramatic, like you can actually see it like boom, go down a little bit and get darker, and boop, go down a little bit and get darker. This will do it on a gentle slope, so it'll gradually get brighter and it'll gradually get darker. Of course, looking at the time, it should be gradually getting brighter in the background just as we speak. You can also program it so the color changes throughout the day, so you know, in the mornings when it's real orange and stuff outside, you can start off that way, then have it get more blue, you know, in the noon, and then a little oranger again at night, so you have sort of a sunset. Now, although this was really easy to figure out, it was a little bit more complicated than, say, you know, just pulling it out of the box and plugging it in. It wasn't just immediately ready to go. There's a little bit of setup to do, so I'm going to run through that real quick with you right now. This is how I set it up for this tank. What's neat about the spectral controller is if you've got a bunch of lights on an array, like I've got these 3 lights, you can use the spectral controller to really even it out and make them all have the same settings. The most basic controls inside the spectral controller are basically the same as the 2 dials on the back of your light. So you've got the light intensity and the color intensity. So what's cool is you can daisy chain all your lights together and get the exact same settings on those dials, so you don't have to kind of eyeball and guess where they are. The cable that they use to connect to each other is, well, it looks a lot like a stereo headphone cable. In fact, I didn't even buy the Kessel branded cord to connect the two. I actually found this other just headphone cable and I just tried it out and it worked just fine. The Kessel branded cords were a little short for what I wanted, and they were also $20 a piece. I bought 2 10-foot long cables for about $6 a piece. They're made by, I think it's called Knips. I gotta say they were really, really good quality just for what they were. I mean, they almost had this kind of like this springy, weird texture on the outside of it. They seem like pretty solid cables, and I'll include a link just like all the other products down below. So now I've got all the lights set up and all their respective schedules, and the Kessels kind of gradually come up, and then they're super bright right in the middle of the day, and they go down and they get dimmer and dimmer at night. So what's weird and something I had to think about is, like, my normal light cycle for a planted tank is around 6 hours. But because a great deal of the time this is going to be light at just the lowest levels, you know, as it starts to go down and down and down, I'm hoping I can actually leave this tank on a little bit longer during the day or a little bit further into the night, just because of my work schedule. So when I get home, I can enjoy it for a little bit longer during the day. I hate it when I get home from work and I got about 10 minutes to look at my tanks and then they shut off. This had a lot of different spaces for programs. Basically, after you set your program, you just set it into play, and it looked like you could kind of do different ones. So if you wanted to change that throughout the year and have different cycles, you can do that. It also looked like you could give a completely separate set of programs to another aquarium. So say if I bought another Kessel light for the 27-gallon cube and ran that other line that way, then in theory it could have its own color balance and light schedule completely separate from the other tank. Or I could daisy chain this last light and get a really super long cable, plug it in, and have the exact same intensity and schedule as the original light, all out of that one controller. Now the spectral controller will run you about $100, and there are some things that it doesn't do compared to things that are really popular right now. It actually advertises it as a benefit, but it doesn't connect to Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. You're not going to be able to access this from your phone and change it that way at all. These lights do plug into more expensive controllers like the Apex controller and stuff like that a lot of saltwater people use because they've got all the various devices and sensors and stuff. But that's a lot more expensive than the simple controller, and this was really nice. I mean, basically you set it and forget it, you know. I'm kind of tired of all the cords, like the power cord, and if you had like 2 different controllers coming out the bottom, that would be like 3 cords coming out the bottom of this thing. And while I understand the practicality of all that, I really definitely see the appeal, and my guess is their next spectral controller will just be a transmitter that goes to an app on your phone. But there are a lot of people that don't like technology like that, and I completely understand. I mean, I work in the computer industry, that stuff's never a challenge for me, but I think if my mom had this tank, she would much prefer the spectral controller over another piece of technology to try to defeat. This tank has been doing pretty good so far. I still need to hook up the CO2. I just haven't had time to really dedicate an evening to kind of fixing that. But I think I'm going to do that this week. I'm going to try to add fish, probably my first initial fish or 2 in the next couple of days. It's been super busy at the Peck household. I haven't had time to do much other than order some things through the mail or stop by my local fish store and pick it up and bring it back here and kind of mess with the tank a little bit. I ended up switching my internet provider. So I've got a brand new internet provider. I'm going to try another live stream. Maybe I probably will just do a test live stream. I'm going to do something, maybe come talk to you guys and then just delete it when it's over. Just to kind of see how it goes. Now I've got a couple of other projects I want to do for this tank. I've got the extra tub here for the sump. I'm going to connect it to the main unit and have an extra space to work down there. Once I pull the fish from the big tank upstairs and I put them in here, then I'll be able to move other fish into that tank. There's a couple of tanks that I'm thinking about breaking down, so what I might do is make that a holding area for a bunch of different fish as I start to bring some of these smaller tanks down and then redo them. And what I really plan to do is either redo some of the same tanks or just kind of keep changing it up and try some new things. There's a couple of these little tanks that just don't look great anymore. I mean, it's been several years since I set up that little 10 gallon that the rams are in, and I really would like to break that down and just kind of repurpose it and put the rams somewhere else. And of course this month we've got an H2O Plants plant pack. We've got a My Aquarium box. They're all coming up real soon. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss one. So folks, until next time, follow your bliss, keep a clean tank, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. All that years ago in high school, I bet I did. Hey folks, as you hey you guys, as you know, I'm a pretty active consumer, and I picked up a couple of products this week. I'm just gonna unbox you. They cost extra, by the way. So looking inside. Oh, I gotta get this part done. You guys.